I just want to start out and welcome everyone to our presentation, which we're currently calling Without You, It's Just Voltneering. And my name's Joe. I'm the executive director of a small nonprofit up in Columbia Heights called 826DC.
And hello, my name is Kira Wisniewski. I am one of the co-founders of 826DC.
Now, some of you probably know everything about 826. Some of you are probably like, what are you talking about? What are those numbers? What does it mean? And what we are, very quickly, is the newest chapter in a national network of nonprofits called 826 National. It was originally founded in San Francisco by the author Dave Eggers. And that founding chapter, 826 Valencia, is a pirate store. Now, for all intents and purposes, we are exactly like the pirate store, but we don't sell peg legs or eye patches. We're a museum, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself. We'll get to that later.
826DC was born in 2007, but its birth name was Capital Letters Writing Center. At the time, there was a couple of us that approached 826 National. We wanted them to bring their model of learning and interaction with students and basically, the whimsical magic of 826 to the nation's capital. But they weren't really ready to expand at that point. So we did what any normal people with full-time jobs would do, is we decided to start our own writing center. And so we did that, completely volunteer run based on their model. I like to think of this period of our relationship as if we were kind of dating, but they didn't want to make it official yet.
So basically, we see that the need for what we do in DC is exceptionally clear. In 2008, 38% of DC public school students could write at a proficient or above level. In 2010, that number fell to 32%. So at its very simplest, nearly 2 out of every 3 DCPS students cannot write proficiently. It is estimated that upwards of $3.1 billion are wasted every year because of poor writing skills. And upwards of 8 million students from grades at upwards of 3.1 read or write at the most basic of levels.
Recently, our co-founder of the national organization, Dave Eggers, won an award. And in that acceptance speech, he said that there's no silver bullet in education. You need to invest in teachers and the human connection with students. At 826, we truly, truly believe that that one-on-one time with a student can really make an impact. And that's where you come in.
So you're now like, OK, you help kids, but how do you do it? And we do it in 6 very simple ways. First, we offer after-school tutoring, where students come in for 3 hours a day, 4 days a week, and receive one-on-one attention in any subject at any skill level. We offer in-school programs where we go into a classroom and work with teachers to develop realize their dream curriculum. We offer field trips where we bring classrooms into our center, teach them the basic of storytelling, introduce them to authors. We have help for English language programs. We provide student publishing opportunities and evening and weekend writing workshops, all with the goal of turning students into published authors.
Since our center officially opened in Columbia Heights in 2010, we have served over 2,000 students.
Wow, that's a lot of kids.
Yeah, it sure
Why don't you
is.
tell us more?
I will. So as I mentioned earlier, in 2007, we started as Capital Letters Writing Center. It was myself, Holly Jones, and Julia Smith, and we actually met at TEISM right down the hill. And we were like, hey, we should start a writing center, and so we did. In the spring of 2008, we held our first workshop at Woodrow Wilson High. And then the following year, spring 2009, we put out our first student publication, which was The Way We See It, which was written by juniors and seniors at Cardozo High School. That summer, we hired our first full-time employee, and we're no longer 100% volunteer run. While all this was happening, of course, we were still Capital Letters Writing Center. So we were still talking to 826 National, and they were finally like, oh, hey. And we were like, oh, hey. And we made it official in November of 2009. We became the 8th newest, and I like to say most handsome chapter of the 826 family. And here are some pretty pictures of us.
Now, within the year from November 2009 to October 2010, we had gone out to start raising all the funds to open this wonderful and beautiful site. This, of course, is the Museum of Unnatural History, which is our whimsical storefront, which we'll get to later. And now, what you're probably saying to yourself is, OK, you were a volunteer organization. Now you have staff members. You serve more than 2,000 kids with what we have is 2.5 employees. And the answer is, well, let me introduce you to them first. There's me, of course, in that great pit helmet right there. Jimmy, our programs assistant. Dylan, our part-time volunteer and events coordinator. So we have 2.5 people. We serve more than 2,000 kids. How do you do it? And the answer is with more than 1,000 volunteers.
So last year, we engaged more than 1,000 volunteers who did more than 11,545 volunteer hours. Now, according to the independent sector who calculates this kind of thing in monetary terms, they calculate volunteering hours as $21 an hour. So that equals $242,445.
Yes. So that's a big number. So who are these 1,000 people? And the answer is very simply, they're anyone. They're artists, they're writers, they're journalists, they work in nonprofits, they work in big corporations, they are that person you met at that party once who's now your friend on Facebook, or they're that guy who rides that fixed gear bicycle that you've seen anywhere. They can be the person sitting next to you right now, and as we like to say, they could be or are you.
One of the things that we've always been super conscious of while building our organization is building a robust volunteer community. We know, and as you probably know too, that sometimes volunteering can be lonely. You go to an event or something that somebody's doing that's great and you're working in the community, you do that event and then you leave, not really truly interacting with your other volunteers. So we've always really wanted to build this community so you get to know each other. So you're not only invested in the volunteer community, but also in the organization, and everyone wins. So the question that we get all the time is, how do I get involved? How do we put the U in Voltneering?
Yeah, and
it's really simple.
It's really simple.
With a couple of things we're going to talk about right now. First is to just dive right in. Come to a new volunteer orientation, and then we're going to talk to you about all the different programs we do a little bit more in depth than we are right now. And a couple times people will ask after going through orientation, can I come observe tutoring? And the answer is no. Come tutor, one-on-one. Just jump right in. Don't be afraid. We'll give you the tools and the information you need, but we don't coddle our volunteers. We empower them.
And very simply, volunteering should always be fun. And by that, it seems almost super simple. We're talking about huge ideas today. And yet, what we want to talk about is how volunteering should be fun. You should go out and have a great time working with kids. You should meet people of like interests and develop a community around what you're doing in improving the educational world or the environmental world or whatever it is you find passionate about. But we create opportunities as an organization that relies so heavily on the work of individuals like you to make sure that you are having fun. Because if you're not, we need to have a talk. Because we should probably break up.
But because of that reason, we don't have a volunteer hour minimum. We understand that life happens and that sometimes you might disappear for a month or two, and that's fine. We understand that. But we also hope that every now and again you'll be able to come spend time with us and our students maybe twice a week. That would be really, really ideal. The other thing we try to do all the time is just to trust in our volunteers. As we've talked about, with the sheer volume of programming that we do, with only 2.5 employees, we can't do it without this army of volunteers. So we really rely on them in a lot of ways. And a great example of that is our evening and weekend workshops. And that's where the volunteers actually create, develop, and then lead these workshops. And so some examples are, one was called Music to My Ears, which was a review writing workshop. Another one was How to Make This Very Zine, which was a workshop about self-publishing. And then the third example was for a tween demographic called Ode to My Underpants, which was a workshop about writing odes. And so again, those were all completely created and then developed and then led by our volunteers.
Now, one of the most important things about building a volunteer community is having a place to call home. Now, how many of you have walked through Columbia Heights? Hands. Seen that fountain, seen maybe Pollo Campero, Julia's Empanadas, Frozen Yo, and saw that weird place with taxidermy in the window. That's us. We are the ones with taxidermy in the window. This is the Museum of Unnatural History, and it is our whimsical portal to the outside world. It is where everyone comes in and says, oh, what is this place? And we say, whatever we want, because we get to brag about it, which is awesome. So we get to tell everyone about what we do, who we are. And this becomes the most important outreach arm of our organization. Because we're not a museum. We're actually a museum gift shop. But we're not really a museum gift shop. We're actually a writing and tutoring center. So we get to break down all those barriers, get people to laugh at our products, get everyone interested in talking about education, because that's what our overwhelming goal is to be. Now, the wonderful thing about the Museum of Unnatural History is that it's completely operated by volunteers. So products you'll see later are designed by, created, and put together by volunteers. And they all staff our store. So not only do they take ownership over our programs, they become important ambassadors to our mission.
So some examples of some of these products that Joe has alluded to. We have unicorn tears. Puts the sparkle in sadness. And we are the leading supplier of unicorn tears on the Eastern Seaboard, FYI. We also have a safari hat and soup bowl because you'll never know where adventure will take you, but you know that you'll probably want soup when you get there. Speaking of soup, primordial soup, better than homemade. And of course, the field journal for when you have to go right now.
Now, one of the wonderful things about the Museum of Unnatural History and these products is that everything that's sold in that storefront helps supplement all the free programming that we do in our center. So when you go in and you buy a jar of unicorn tears for your favorite lover of unicorns, that helps support our programming. Now, some of the other things we do where volunteers are exceptionally important is a part of our grassroots fundraising initiatives. Most recently, we just closed the books on the Mustache-a-thon, which is our March fundraiser, which is like a walk-a-thon, but people grow mustaches. So you might have heard about Movember. We're kind of like that, but we did it first. This was our 4th annual, and every year we've been breaking more and more records. This year we had 39 participants. We had more than 350 individual donors. We raised more than $22,000. All over the course of March, asking people to grow mustaches. Now, for the ladies in the room, we are gender inclusive. You get to participate in prosthetic growers challenges, maybe design your own mustache, wear it at work, whatever you want to do. It becomes another part of not only helping us successfully fulfill our mission, but spread the word about who we are and what we do.
And just to highlight this individual in the ascot right there, that's Josh Fixler. If you come by the museum on Wednesdays, you'll often see him there. He individually raised $3,800 in the month of March, so very impressive. And yes, that is Zac Efron in the top left. We realize, though, that maybe not all of our volunteers want to grow hair on their upper lip. But we also recognize that many of our volunteers are writers themselves. So this past week, we actually celebrated another milestone. We had the 3-year anniversary of The Lowercase, which is our monthly reading series, where we invite volunteers and friends of AT6DC to come read and share their writing in what we think is one of the best cafes in Washington, D.C., Big Bear in Bloomingdale. So we had our 3-year anniversary. It was really great. There was cake.
It's cake.
Which, hey. So that's the first Wednesday of every month. All right. So what happens next? You might be thinking, well, this is all lovely, but I'm not really a writer. That's fine. We have students that have math homework that need your help too. Have you ever done any kind of fundraising? What about grant writing? What about retail? How about baking? Yes, we've had a bake sale or two.
Now, you might be saying, okay, I love working with kids. I want to get involved. And then you might also be saying, I hate kids, but I love the idea of working with kids. And you know what? We have stuff for you too. So whether you have weekend availability, evening availability, daytime availability, when we created an organization that relies so heavily on the work of people, generous people with their time, whether it's 15 minutes, whether it's an hour, whether it's 5 hours, spread over however many days, weeks, months, there's always something for you to give back.
If you want to be involved, we want you to be involved. So our next volunteer orientation is on April 19th at 10 a.m. at the Museum of Unnatural History. Please be part of our volunteer community.
And we just want you to come in and help us put the U back in volunteering. Thank you.
Thanks.